Hello and welcome to the sewing studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make these little fabric pods. And what inspired me to make these was many years ago I won this little one at the Festival of Quilts in Birmingham. And since then it's sat on my cutting table every day and all my little offcuts get put in it. So I thought, what a great idea. So I've started making them for sewing friends. So the ones I've got here have been quilted. This one has got a heavyweight Vilene in it, so it's nice and rigid, but I've used that idea, but I've put wadding in mine. So this one was made with 8-inch squares. These two were made with 10-inch squares, and this one's actually got a little bit of quilting. You can't see it very well because the thread is the same colour, but I'll show you on the one that we're going to do in a moment. You'll be able to see that a little bit clearer. So it's up to you. You can do it with Vilene, wadding, quilted, not quilted. So let's get started and I'll show you what you need to do. So for today, we're going to use 10-inch squares, and this is a great way of using up those odd layer cake squares if you happen to have any. So if I was doing this one, for example, I would have 2 10-inch squares of the lighter colour. So that would be this one here for my lining. And then 2 10-inch squares of the outer fabric, and I've put wadding on the back of these, and you can either use a fusible wadding or I've stuck mine with 505. So that's what you need first of all. And then what you need to do with your squares is you need to cut out your boxy corners. So on this one, this is going to be the front of the one we're going to make today, and I think you can see just here, you can see that I've done quilting and I've come down on this one. So you can see that I've quilted these two and I've already cut my corners out, and I've done that with one of the lining already. So I'm just going to show you how to cut these corners out. So whatever is going to be the bottom of your fabric, you need to cut out a 2-inch square from the bottom of your fabric. So I'm just going to line that up, and now I can't find my pen. Oh, here we are. So I'm just using a regular pen. You can use a pencil, you can use anything, because we're going to cut this off so it's not going to notice. So I'm literally just taking a 2-inch square off of each of the bottom corners. And then I'm going to cut that off. In fact, I'm going to pop that in my pot. And now we're going to go over to the machine, because what we're going to do is we're going to sew a lining piece to an outer piece, and we're going to do that twice. So we're just going to sew along the top edge there. So we're just going over to the sewing machine. So now we're going to join our lining to our outer fabric, so right sides together. And you'll notice that I've got a walking foot on my sewing machine. Because we're sewing through 2 layers of fabric and the wadding, it's better to have a walking foot on because it stops it getting all scrunched up. So you end up with two pieces like this. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to line up our two pieces so that we've got, let me just show you on this camera here. So we've got our two outer fabrics right sides together and our two lining fabrics right sides together. Now on this shape here, we're going to sew straight across the bottom. We're going to do the same on our lining, but on our lining we're going to leave a little gap for turning. So we're just going to sew in a little way, stop, sew in a little way, stop, so that we've got a gap in the middle for turning that through. So I'm going to do that first of all, and then I'm going to sew right the way down both sides, there and there. And now for the sides. And what I tend to do, because you've got this little bit of bulk here, is I push them in opposite directions, just as you would if you were quilting. So I'm just going to find my pins. I'm going to pop a pin in there. And then you're going to open this up across here like this, and you are going to sew straight across the bottom, and that's what gives us our square shape at the bottom. I'm going to do a generous 1/4 of an inch here, and the reason for that is when I made one earlier on, I didn't catch all of the fabric, and when I turned it through, I'd got a raw edge. So I'm going just slightly bigger than a 1/4 of an inch seam. And I'm going to repeat that with the lining side. I haven't quite caught that in, so I'm going to go back over it. I think it hasn't quite lined up there, but it's not the end of the world because it's the lining, so I'm just going to catch that in now. And now I'm going back over to the other camera and I'm going to turn that all round so it's the right way. Now to turn it through. And this takes a little bit of time because of all the bulk that we've got to push through. And then I'm just going to press this gap here so that it makes it easier when you go to sew it. So I'm just pressing those folds in there. And then you can either slip stitch that closed, or you could go back over to your machine and just do a small stitch to close your gap. And then you tuck that down inside. All the way around there, give it a little press again. And then you can turn over, you can leave it like that, or you can turn it over and make a cuff. So turn that over. And again, you could give it a little press just to hold it in place. And there's your little fabric pod. Now on this one, I've done a little bit of top stitching before I folded it down. So you could do the same on here, or you could sew the whole thing down and do some decorative stitching. I just think these are great for fabric storage. So if you had, say, pink scraps, you could decide that you're going to put them in your pink pot, or if you had yellow scraps, you could put them in your yellow pot. You can make them smaller, you can make them as little thread catchers, or like me, you can just have it on your cutting table for putting your little scraps in. So if the lady that made this is watching, I'd just like to say thank you, because you've really inspired me. So there's your little fabric pods. Quilted or not quilted, it's entirely up to you. So make them your own, and as always, have fun. I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio.